Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Backlot Banter, the monthly box office analysis show, where today we will be officially doing our first monthly box office analysis. We did our summer box office analysis last time, but this time we'll be talking about September 2022, an interesting month, no doubt. I'm your host, Tanner Dykstra, joined here by my good friend and box office analyst himself, Tucker Hazel.
That's me.
We're here to talk some box office ballyhoo, aren't we, Tucker?
Oh
September was an interesting month, as I said. But before we get into it, I want to invite you to join the Discord. That link's in the description. There you can talk to us about box office, about movies, about video games, about anything anything on God's green earth. You know what I mean? Comment down below if you have any thoughts on the box office analysis that we have here for you. Also, give us your October box office predictions because we will have those for you at the end of this episode. Like this video, ring the bell, all that good stuff. But so, without further ado, Tucker, shall we just roll right into it?
Yeah, absolutely. We should just roll right into it. And starting with where this box office month began on National Cinema Day, which is September 3rd here in the U.S. And who knows if this will become a yearly phenomenon. But this was a national, I believe maybe international initiative to have all movie theater tickets across the nation be sold at $3. They had $3 movie popcorn and drinks and just generally having a good time, getting people back in the seats. And alongside this was a couple interesting points of information. The first re-release of Spider-Man No Way Home with 11 extra minutes of footage called the More Fun Stuff version came out here. And also Jaws was re-released for the first time in its history in IMAX, which is just crazy. And that cracked into the top 10 as well. And because of this initiative, Top Gun Maverick, which has been in the top 10, in the top 5 for months and months and months at this point, was able to bring it back up to number 1 at the national box office, at the domestic box office. And that's just crazy. What an interesting day. I really hope this comes back sometime next year.
Yeah, I guess the question that is raised out of National Cinema Day, though, is because if you look at the three that we've pulled out there, Spider-Man No Way Home, More Fun Stuff Edition, the Jaws IMAX re-release, and Top Gun Maverick, some big performers there, all films that had either been out for a while or are re-releases of older films. Which I guess begs the question, Tucker, did this only work for films that people had seen before?
Sure.
Because, as we also know, September 3rd, National Cinema Day wasn't a big day for new releases.
No.
The really only one of note was that Spider-Man No Way Home re-release. So, and I think we'll get into, of course, the September new releases that the month had to offer. But I think it's interesting that these are all ones that the audiences were familiar with, which is interesting.
Though that doesn't mean that other movies didn't benefit from this. A lot more people saw movies like Bullet Train or The Invitation, both of which did pretty well on this day as they were wrapping up or continuing their box office rollouts. But it was the biggest news of this weekend was 3 movies, you're right, that people had probably already all seen.
Yes.
Two of the highest grossing movies of all time and one of the most classic movies of all time re-released into a new format. So you're right. It definitely paints it in an interesting light, but this was an experiment that I think paid off. Just interesting information all around and some great movies continuing to do better.
Yeah. And speaking of great movies, Tucker, shall we take a look at the new releases that September had to offer, namely the top 10 box office performers of the month?
Yep. We've got our top 10 September 2022 domestic openings here. I copy and pasted the format that I used for the top 10 summer grossing. But hey, I think this format works pretty well. And
it's sleek, it's sexy, and I like it.
Yeah, that's the point of the show, and the two of us, sleek and sexy. We've got the top 10 movies here that brought in some money, varying degrees of money at the domestic box office this past month. At number 1 with $22,609,925, Smile opened at number 1, which I don't think most people saw coming.
A shock for sure. We'll get to that in a bit to break it down individually, movie by movie. But this is a shocking number 1, especially for us. If you look back at our predictions, I had "Don't Worry, Darling" at number 1. Tucker, I believe you had the Avatar re-release at number 1.
Yeah.
But yeah, a shock to the two of us for sure, and I'm sure to a lot of people as well.
And we've got Don't Worry, Darling, which was, I think, the more expected high
Hmm.
performer of this month at $19,353,213 at number two, and barely squeaking above The Woman King at number three
Yep.
at $19,051,442 for its opening weekend. So two very close together that performed around what they were expected to. I think Don't Worry, Darling was projected maybe a little bit higher than that, but certainly
Yeah.
in the range. And we'll talk a little bit about that movie later, dropping down. But The Woman King, overperforming and almost meeting Don't Worry, Darling at an
Yep.
interestingly paired 2 and 3.
And we have a paired 4 and 5 as well as we
True.
talked about that Avatar re-release coming in with $10,529,576, and Barbarian bringing up a very very close fifth with
Mm-hmm.
$10,543,948. So yeah, there's some interesting pairings at 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, and then Smile coming out on
At a
top of it.
clear number one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then you have the rest of the top 10, number 6 through 10. Number 6 being Spider-Man No Way Home, the re-release. Number
The
7
more fun
being
stuff version.
yes. Was there more fun stuff? We didn't see it actually.
No, we
funny enough.
didn't.
That's the only one on this top 10 that we did not see.
It's true.
We
Well, I
did
didn't see How They Run. I didn't see
Oh,
How They
that's
Run.
true. You did. Yes, you did not see that.
Yikes.
But we also had A24's Pearl at number
Mhm.
7. Number 8 was See How They Run. Number 9, Brahmastra Part 1 Shiva. And number 10, Bros. So yes, interesting stuff all around. But I think we have to start with our number 5 performer of the month, Barbarian, starting out in release order for the month.
Yes, this was the first sort of it's the first new movie of the
Yeah.
month, because Spider-Man No Way Home More Fun Stuff version is not a new movie, as we probably all know here. But Barbarian, man, this was a fun surprise for us, as much as we enjoyed it. You can go check out our review. But for the box office as well, bringing in a lot more money than people were expecting it to.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we have some interesting tidbits here. As indicated there, it only had a 40% drop off in its second week, which is fairly high as far as new releases go.
Mm-hmm.
I think that has to do with, if I may do a little editorializing here, just the power of having a movie with a surprising and entertaining twist that
Mm-hmm.
you don't spoil in the trailers at all, and
Yes.
that people tell their friends. You will never guess what happens in this film. That
Yeah.
gets butts and seats. It's old-fashioned, but it works. In the case of Barbarian, yes.
Yeah, and it landed this movie its high Rotten Tomatoes score and great word of mouth, as you were saying. 92% on Rotten Tomatoes for a horror
Yeah.
movie is crazy high.
Nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, and it's got a super low budget, so it already more than doubled its budget in that domestic opening alone. And it has barely done anything internationally. I don't know if that means that it still needs to be released in some markets or if it will not be released at all. But really the only thing here that is disappointing you can say about this movie, but considering how much money it's made, it doesn't matter. It's the C+ cinema score.
Yeah.
It's a weird movie, so I can see people going in thinking, oh hey, just a straight up horror movie. No, it's weirder than that.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's where people didn't quite meet their expectations.
Yeah, I think I certainly didn't expect it to be, a sort of horror comedy in a lot of ways, and maybe
Yeah.
wider audiences were similarly not expecting that, and maybe didn't care for it too much.
Yeah.
But something else that was not initially advertised, which I feel fine with saying now, as we've indicated on the screen here, is that this was strangely in the weeks following its release advertised as a Justin Long movie.
Yes.
Now, Tucker, I don't know if I'm a layman when it comes to these sort of things, but I don't necessarily think that Justin Long is a box office draw.
No,
you're
not
gonna
necessarily.
You're not going to see Justin Long, changing the hierarchy of power in the DC universe,
Nope.
for one example. But yeah, I mean, it was one of the producers of the film who released a new cut of the trailer of the film that is made up of almost entirely Justin Long's scenes.
Yes.
So
With
very interesting
splash
there.
text on the screen that says Justin Long's new movie, and I believe that's also like the title of the YouTube video. That's the ad. So it's just
Yes.
really strange that they decided to advertise it that way. But we had a lot of fun making fun of that. But also, he's one of the great parts about that movie. So for us, it's Justin Long's new movie. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. But let's do-si-do on over to Kevin Smith's new movie.
Well,
who
also
made
Justin Long's new
similar-
movie. He was in Clerks
Oh,
3.
I
Back-to-back
can't
weeks
believe
of Justin Long.
I can't believe I missed that segue, Tucker. Thank you for pointing that out. But Kevin Smith, Justin Long, maybe similarly not being box office draws here.
Nope.
If we take a glance at the box office performance of Clerks 3.
Yep.
Of course, this came out in limited release, but
Yes.
has amassed a total of just under $3 million.
Yoink.
9 here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tucker, what do you have to say to us about the performance of Clerks 3 here? You're the Kevin Smith head of us all.
I am the Kevin Smith head, but this is the first one that I've seen in theaters because my Kevin Smith fandom has come since the pandemic started, when I've watched almost every single one of his movies since 2020, and built up a great amount of excitement for Clerks 3 because I saw it as, and I think as Kevin Smith saw it as, the end of the View Universe era. And it was marketed as that towards his fans. He was traveling around the country showing this film. It's only ever been in limited release, but because of that release strategy, this movie just does not do well at the box office. And a total that is under what even the lowest performers from our top 10 got in their opening day or their opening weekend. And also, I'm just confused on why they keep giving Kevin Smith budgets in general, because $7 million is not a lot, but this film has lost millions of dollars worth of money, not even counting that marketing campaign, and a severe drop off from this film's predecessor, Clerks 2. Of course, there have been other View Universe movies in between there, a Jane Silent Bob reboot, and I believe I had Dogma was after this, or something else.
Dogma was 99. Dogma came in the late 90s to mid 2000s era, where Kevin Smith movies were box office draws, where he was consistently making 10, 15, even up to $20 million when releasing a new movie. And how the mighty have fallen, I will say.
Yeah, he's lost his appeal to most people, but he's certainly still a name, and a lot of his fans came out and saw it. We had a very full showing when we went to see this film in theaters, and you can look down at Clerks 2, made multitudes more money.
Yes.
Made money, period, at the international box office. This movie Clerks 3 is yet to be released, if it ever will, overseas. For less of a budget, the same Rotten Tomatoes score, and almost the same IMDb. And for some reason, Clerks 3 did not get any cinema score. I think maybe that's because it was a limited release film. But
yeah, probably.
It just all downgrades. And frankly, I think most people would say that Clerks 2 is the better movie. So Clerks 3 just kind of a wash across the board.
Yeah, unfortunately. But if we want to talk about something that was not a wash across the board, a surprise across the board, we have to talk about Gina Prince Bythewood's The Woman King, starring Viola Davis, which was, as I said, a surprise in a lot of ways. Not only in the surprising, critical and popular response to it, but also in the box office numbers it has amassed at this point $51 million at the box office, an A+ cinema score, the second film of the year to do that. Only second only to or I guess after Top Gun Maverick also has an A+ cinema score. But yeah, it is a triumph in itself. As we've noted here, it is the second #1 domestic opening for a black female director, coming only after last year's Candyman, directed by Nia DaCosta. So
we're on a good track record of more diversity for #1 box office directors, but 2 in just over a year is not great. But the fact that there's a second one in history kind of paints the rest of history and the prevalence and popularity of black female directors in Hollywood in a negative light. But this is a good sign because this movie is ostensibly all black cast, black director, and positioned very well in terms of maybe getting some awards nominations and just doing very surprisingly good at the box office. It did have a relatively high budget for a film of this scope at $50 million, but that A+ cinema score and great word of mouth has continued keeping this film around. And great Rotten Tomatoes, for some reason a lot lower IMDb. It's interesting to look at Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb and see how they almost never match up. But
I think what that is as we'll see with another later release, is that IMDb happens to be the squandering ground for some racist and homophobic film fans. I will say a lot of films that pride themselves on being diverse, having a diverse cast, and creators oftentimes suffer for it by the losers over at IMDb who will
Yeah,
review bomb it.
that's true. But the movie's doing well, even despite its controversy of the
Anachronisms, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, the tribe portrayed in this film was involved in the African slave trade, and that people before this movie came out thought the movie wasn't going to touch on it at all. So it got some controversy, and people were still saying it's not historically accurate. We actually just got a comment in our review for this film today saying that they could not watch this movie or did not like it at all because of its historical inaccuracies. But it seemed to escape that controversy, and
Yeah, I think so.
hopefully its legacy will continue to shine if it gets and hopefully wins some nominations for just awards in the
Yeah,
future.
it is interesting how this sort of shot up in a lot of awards predictions after the release, just because of that again that popular response to it. So
Yep.
yeah, very interesting to see where that will go as the turn of the year comes around and
hmm
awards really get going.
But next up, we've actually got a film that did not do as well, but I think did great for what it is, which is
hmm
Ty West's Pearl. Ty West and Mia Goth's Pearl, I want to say. I want to put the two of them at top billing for credit for this film because Pearl is a creative collaboration between the two of them, and on its impossibly low $1 million budget, filmed in secret in New Zealand after
hmm
the wrapping of X, and already having a sequel to X announced just around when this film was releasing, called Maxine. This film is just it's a win for Ty West's creativity, for A24 making a low budget movie and having it released to solid box office for a film of this low budget. I'm super happy with how Pearl is doing, though I wish that it was higher when it released, that it stuck around a little more. But what do you expect? I mean, they've released a lot of horror movies this year, and none of them have done great, but they've
hmm
done well for their budgets, and that's really all you can ask for.
Yeah, I think the low budget really is the saving grace of this film,
Yes.
and what makes it so notable is that Ty West is making these consistently well made, well shot, well acted, and overall just like sort of dazzling movies.
hmm
For the eras that they are set in. X being set in the 1970s, Pearl being set in the late 1910s, excuse me. And yeah, the quality that he can bring to them on such a low budget, and that's
Yes.
why A24 keeps bringing him back.
hmm
And also has greenlit Maxine
Yep.
as the end cap for his trilogy, which is very exciting, of course.
Absolutely.
And Pearl is sort of the second horror film that we've touched on here. We've got one more to get to, of course, that we've addressed already, Smile. But it's really interesting the horror response of popular audiences in
Yeah.
September. September sort of typically being a sort of forgotten month in between the summer movie season and the spool up of the award season. Maybe
Yeah.
some scary movies in October, some horror movies in October. September has really been the field in which horror movies have grown and been harvested. Funny enough, in for 2022.
Is that a farming
October,
reference?
it's a
Pearl
farming
reference?
Yes, but October is looking a little weaker,
Yeah.
as we'll get to at the end of this video. But it's just interesting that I wanted to point that out, that September is a very strong month for horror this year.
Yeah, absolutely is. And that also brings us to a film that Letterboxd, I believe, considers a horror movie, which I would say I disagree with. But Don't Worry, Darling, directed by Olivia Wilde, is one of the most controversial films of the year. And though it did well at its opening, as you can see with a $19 million domestic opening, we talked about earlier it being number 2 in terms of domestic openings this month. On a budget of $20 million, it has certainly made its money back, but its controversy has severely kneecapped this film's box office potential. It has had severe drops in the following weeks, and also the controversy surrounding Olivia Wilde. Even though she started on a good swing with Booksmart, I'm not quite sure how this paints her going forward. This sort of being a very mixed bag put squarely on her shoulders.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wouldn't call this film controversial by any stretch of the imagination. I would say that it's more in line with just some classic old school drama.
Yeah.
Twitter drama, Twitter rumors, Florence Pugh not being involved with the marketing of this at
Yeah.
all, rumors leaking out, especially as the film neared closer to its release, about these sort of horror stories from set about how
Yeah.
Olivia Wilde was absent and not directing the movie, and not being present for her actors and her crew and things like that. Who knows to what extent all of these things are true? But it seems as though one decision early on in the production of this film really was the saving grace of it, if I can use that term again,
Hmm.
and that is to replace the main actor of the film, who was initially supposed to be Shia LaBeouf,
Yeah.
with international pop star and flourishing actor Harry Styles. Because as noted there, I think that is a big key to success for this
Yes.
movie, is bringing in Harry Styles' fans to the theater,
Yeah.
to sort of get them interested, get them in the seats for this. The opening weekend audience was 66% female, 70% aged 18 to 34.
These are skews that almost never happen for
Yeah.
films just in general, and especially not ones that open at number one at the box office like this. So it's interesting to see a movie being sort of pitched and aimed at a different demographic than we usually get big box office performers opening at. But it worked for this film. It opened at number one. It had a strong opening week, but it also was very front loaded because of that, because all of those young female Harry Styles fans went out and saw the movie when it came out, and they're done. They're not going to go see it again necessarily, so it has dropped off significantly. But mostly when I was saying controversial, I just mean how this movie was received critically. At
Oh, sure. Yeah,
38% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah,
For me, is very low. I do think this is still a good movie. We had a very contentious review about this with our friend Abram, but it is not well received, especially for a director and a cast and a studio of this caliber. This was expected to do well and be well received and be a good movie until people saw it and the controversy came out. So definitely, I would say maybe the low point of this month in terms of we expected it to be better.
Yeah, I think so. And I just want to refer back to my statement on Harry Styles being a box office draw for this movie. I don't want to say that this was people were only coming to the theater to see Harry Styles act in a leading role here.
Yeah.
Florence Pugh is also very popular amongst the 18 to 34 age group, and I think it also helps. As I alluded to with that Twitter drama, that brought in that age group as well. People who were in tune with the drama, in tune with the updates coming out, with the sort of lack of presence of Florence Pugh in marketing. They were like, I want to see what this movie has to offer in terms of can it unlock any clues for me about this drama. I think that funny enough that the controversy may have hindered it in terms of critical reception, but helped it in terms of popular reception.
Possibly.
In terms of people getting people in the seat for that theater.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of getting people in seats, there's one titan of industry that can always bring audiences back, reel them back in, and that man's name is James Cameron.
Jim Cameron, as he prefers to go.
Jim Cameron, excuse me. And we're friends. And he alone, I might add, decided to re-release Avatar in the year of our Lord 2022, leading up to Avatar: The Way of Water.
Yep.
And it paid off in spades, I might add.
Yeah.
Released the same day as Don't Worry, Darling.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, Don't Worry, Darling finished above Avatar in the domestic market, but in the international market, Avatar came out on top.
It cleaned house, which we got here with 10 million in the domestic opening, but I actually don't have the total for its worldwide opening. But this movie continues to grow and grow and grow. It's been re-released a couple times actually in the last few years, but it's clearly and squarely in its number one spot, back above Avengers Endgame. After that, took the throne for a little while. But the fun thing about seeing this again is that this was our first time seeing it in theaters. Your first time seeing it, period. My first time seeing it on a big screen, and completely changed our minds about how invested we are in the world of Avatar and how much we like this film. Of course, nominated for Best Picture, nominated for a lot of awards, won some Oscars back in the day, but it has dropped significantly in the public sphere. The main online, at least, narrative of this film being that it had no cultural impact. But it made $60 million being back in theaters for only 2 weeks, limited for only 2 weeks, only in 3D, and this movie came out 14 or 13 years ago. And so you're just, I mean, I don't know what to say. They're just wrong. Like,
Yeah.
this movie's making a ton of money. Everyone wants to
This
see it.
It's had numerous re-releases. It notably did not re-release in China on this turnaround because it
Yeah.
re-released in China last year and made another buttload of money.
Yep.
So no, I completely disagree with the Avatar has no cultural impact sort of statement. Let's see. I also noted here that this was released in 4K high dynamic range and with particular scenes redone in 48 frames per second,
Hmm.
which is apparently, as I understand it, what the entirety of Avatar: The Way of Water will be in.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
and I honestly, we talk about, the impact that that Avatar, the original Avatar back in 2009 had, not only culturally, as we just got done proving, with no flaws, by the way,
Yeah.
but also on the film industry itself. Jim Cameron, again, we're friends, I call him Jim, revolutionized the usage of motion capture, of CGI in films, and has brought us to the point that we are in today. So could he do that again with this
Certainly
sort of
possible.
upscaled frame rate, upscaled dynamic range
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
his film? If not, at least it'll be enough to get people in the theater for an updated 2022 visual feast that Jim Cameron has brought us back to Pandora with.
Yeah, in December when Way of the Water releases.
Yes.
And the last thing I do want to say about this is we saw it in 3D. As I said, I believe it was only released in 3D for this re-release.
Mm.
The first 3D movie that you and I had seen in years,
For sure.
and years and years. I can't remember the last time a 3D movie was shown at our local theater. Even if it was, we didn't see it. But I really enjoyed seeing it in 3D. It didn't really feel like a film that was, of course, it was intended to be in 3D. It was released in 3D when it came out, but it wasn't stuff going into your face like you'll,
Yeah.
if you go to like a documentary that's filmed in 3D, that like sometimes it'll just be like fish coming at you or whatever.
Mhm.
It wasn't like that, and it just really added a depth to it that I enjoyed 3D for the first time in probably a decade, which was just really exciting. And also, we both loved Avatar.
Yes.
Seeing it this time in the theater.
It was a little bit more spendy, but I'm happy to contribute to that $2.9 billion overall worldwide.
It'll cross
now.
3 eventually. Yeah,
Eventually, yeah.
This movie will probably continue to be re-released every time that one of these sequels is coming out. Frankly,
Yep.
and I see it within the decade crossing 3 billion and being the first movie to ever do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, if we want to get to a film that is a long way from crossing 3 billion, shall we put it like that, Tucker?
It's a little bit farther away.
A little bit farther away is Bros. I feel like every month we have a caboose of the film lineup, and Bros is our caboose, unfortunately, this month.
Mm-hmm. Coming in at that number 10 slot for domestic openings, as we mentioned before, but also just being much lower than I thought it would be. But also maybe I didn't have my finger on the pulse for how I thought this movie was going to do. I thought, hey, rom-com comedy from Nicholas Stoller, produced by Judd Apatow. I thought this was going to put butts, as you can see on this poster, in seats. People are going to be grabbing ass all across the country, but no. No. This movie barely cracked its top 5 when it opened in its own week. And that is really sad. It has not been released internationally. I'm not sure if it has plans to. I'm sure maybe some European releases. But obviously a very queer-focused film. So no way it'll release in China, no way it'll release in the Middle East. So its market's already limited, but it had sort of a limited market here in the U.S. where queer-focused content has been doing better, very popular on streaming. But the first ever gay rom-com produced by a major company, and didn't really work out for them.
Yeah, I mean, Tucker, you bring up an interesting point of the sort of LGBTQ content. It is sort of becoming more prevalent on streaming, but not so much in theaters.
Yeah,
and that was sort of a source of a bit of a social media flare up on Twitter, when writer and star of Bros, Billy Eichner, came out with some statements that seemed to indicate, jokingly, of course, that Bros did underperformed at the box office because of, the homophobia inherent in much of America's viewing audiences. And, I mean, there were arguments on both sides, and I don't know what side I'm going to come down on. Obviously, it's hard to empirically measure that sort of thing.
Impossible.
But it is noted in a Hollywood Reporter article that I looked through today that its top 10 opening markets were all in New York City, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, and it is notably underperforming in the Midwest and the southern regions of the United States. So it's hard not to have that sort of idea creeping into your mind. But of course, there was another piece written sort of in response to Billy Eichner in the LA Times where the writer said, it's not fair to chalk it up to that specifically. There's a star power issue.
Yeah.
There's the issue of, audiences maybe not being drawn to Judd Apatow films or rom-coms in general in the theaters anymore.
Yeah.
It also points out that Billy Eichner maybe sort of unfairly slandered the work of LGBTQ creators on streaming platforms, since that's where a lot of that content lives now.
Yeah.
And namely, it pointed out that it's okay if we let, these films, these properties that have, diverse creators and cast and things like that. It's okay if we let them flop. We don't need to sort of, put these things up on a pedestal and be disappointed when they fail, because they should be viewed as films like everything else. So unfortunate, of course, that Bros was considered a flop, because it's a great movie. We both really, really liked it.
Yeah, and it seems like the people who saw it, as limited of a market that it was, agree with us, because a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes is crazy for a rom-com. And an A cinema score is kind of rare this month. We got a B- for Don't Worry Darling, we got a B- for Pearl, of course, The Woman King at an A+, but no cinema score for Clerks, and a C+ for Barbarian. Every movie except for The Woman King we've looked at so far has gotten below an A, and Bros opened at an A, which is good. So people were happy with this film when they saw it, but I do think that it being released on streaming probably sooner than they would want it to, with its very limited box office appeal. It's probably going to drop out of theaters within 1 or 2 weeks. But I think it'll have a home on streaming. I think once people actually watch this film, I believe that it'll become one of the queer comedies of all time. And I'm excited to be on the page of, hey, I saw this film opening night in theaters, and I supported it with my money.
Championing it from day one. You're welcome, Billy Eichner. We aren't homophobic.
True. Yes.
We are also not smilophobes, Tucker, because we also saw this the same day, opening night, and as we talked about at the very beginning,
we're not gelatophobes. Gelatophobia is the fear of smiling.
Oh, interesting.
So,
well, we're not whatever that word is, because nor were the viewing public of the domestic market, because this film, or the international market for that matter, this film has made a surprising $43.5 million overall so far. Of course, it has not ended its theatrical run. This was a late in the month release, but surprising stuff all around. A 78% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was originally supposed to go to streaming, as we contrast this with Bros, which is sort of flouting that sort of streaming release. This was originally meant to go to streaming, but tested so strongly that they decided to give it a theatrical release, and it paid off.
Absolutely, it did. As we said, this was the #1 box office opening of the month, which we really did not see coming. No. But it's kind of nice to have a film from a first-time director, a horror movie not based on some property. Like this isn't a Halloween Kills. This isn't even Pearl, which is technically based on a previous property.
But or has that A24 sort of moniker to it. Yeah.
True. Yeah. But doing this well, doing the top of its month, probably still having pretty good legs. Of course, it's yet to be seen. We haven't even had this film have another week yet as we're recording it. But being the biggest domestic opener of September 2022 is great for Smile. Unfortunately, it didn't hit with us like we were wanting it to. But frankly, when you look at these stats across the board here, that's you and I being mildly disappointed. Just kind of the only thing going against this film.
Yeah. Let's see. There was something else I wanted to bring up here, and it was the marketing push for Smile is really interesting.
Absolutely.
Because we saw the teaser for this, I want to say all the way back in the summer. It's a Paramount release, so I'm going to assume it was maybe on Top Gun Maverick.
Mm-hmm.
And just a very strong marketing push from Paramount on this thing. And I think that goes to show that a lot of these flops are maybe due to poor marketing on the behalf of the studios, because this was they had a surprise teaser put out with Top Gun Maverick, a huge box office draw for the summer. Then it was sort of gone from the public consciousness until it was time to spool up that marketing campaign again,
Yep.
and they went all in. There were banner ads, there were YouTube ads, there were people smiling behind home plate of major MLB games,
Mm-hmm.
and it paid off. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that's I'm really gonna take away from this month as we're looking back. I'm gonna be an old man. I'm gonna be looking back on September 2022, and I'll be like, what were the things? I'm like, oh yeah, oh man, I really enjoyed The Woman King. Oh, Don't Worry, Darling was weird. Oh, Bros was kind of a flop, but a great movie. But Smile had that marketing campaign, and I wish more movies took creative ideas like this and ran with them like Smile did. I think that's probably my favorite thing about this film, is it shows that there are unique ways to approach marketing a film and having it reach a wider audience, like having people just staring and smiling at the camera at sports games.
Yeah.
I'm really happy with that, and just so glad that it happened.
Yeah. But that does it for our movie wrap-up of this month. But we also had a few big headlines to talk about. We might burn through these pretty quickly. We'll probably spend more time on a few of them than others. But we collected a few of the big headlines of the month. And one of them, our first one, is really a tie-in with our first episode of this show, where we were talking about, will Jurassic World Dominion cross that $1 billion mark? And lo and behold, great job, Colin Trevorrow. Great job, Universal? Yeah, Universal.
Yes.
It has joined the 1 billion club, the 51st film to do so. Yeah, I mean, it joins the rest of the Jurassic World trilogy up there.
Yes. I said this last month as I was kind of talking about, will it scrape by? Who's gonna tell? Time will tell, and it did. And it's done now. Congratulations, you can rest now. It crossed $1 billion. Still the lowest, I believe, of its trilogy. But they all made $1 billion, and so this franchise is not done. And we will continue to see dinosaur, Jurassic, whatever movies. And I'm just happy, just sort of, that it crossed $1 billion, because it would have been just really unsatisfying to see it sitting there at like $9.95 and be like,
Yeah.
damn. I don't care about this movie. I think it's bad. I wish bad movies didn't make this much money, but at least it crossed $1 billion. Like, there's something satisfying about that.
Yes. We also had D23 this month, and while it wasn't maybe a lot to write home about, we did get a Werewolf by Night trailer.
Yep.
Sort of the first major acknowledgement from this of this
only made real acknowledgement of this film.
What is it called? A special presentation by Disney. And we also got the Thunderbolts cast revealed. And if we're going with a horror trend with Werewolf by Night, there we have to acknowledge Bill Skarsgård and Lily Rose Depp were cast in Robert Eggers' next film, a Nosferatu remake that he's been trying to get off the ground for a while now.
Yeah,
and it's just good to see that it's finally happening. Maybe this is off the back of the Northman eking across the line to being a financial success after its VOD release. But it's interesting the cast here as well. As I initially heard, I don't know if this is rumors or speculation or completely fabricated or the truth maybe, but the original cast included Harry Styles and Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yep.
Anya Taylor-Joy had to back out due to scheduling conflicts. She's in a ton of stuff coming up. And Harry Styles had to back out because he's a bad actor.
Yeah, it's true. And I don't want bad actors in Robert Eggers movies, because even if only one of them has really hit with me, I love the acting in them, and Bill Skarsgård is perfect for a Nosferatu film. One interesting thing that I just want to say, I heard in an interview regarding Barbarian, is Bill Skarsgård is actually not a fan of horror movies.
Oh, that's funny.
Even though he's known as being Pennywise, and he was in Barbarian, and now he's going to be in Nosferatu, he's just good at them. But he doesn't love horror movies, but now he's going to be in another one.
That's really he's given like probably I'll say the most iconic horror performance of the
Yeah,
21st century. And you're like,
probably.
yeah, they're too scary. I don't really like them.
But on a more comedic note, we have had probably the biggest
Yeah.
headline of this past month. Hugh Jackman was confirmed to return as Logan/Wolverine in Deadpool 3 in one of the great marketing moments of that I can remember in recent memory. Having Ryan Reynolds sit on his couch announcing that Deadpool 3 is happening and that Hugh Jackman just in the background, he's like, hey, Hugh, you want to play Wolverine again? Yeah, sure. He's like eating
Yeah,
yogurt
sure.
or something in the background.
Mhm.
And then, of course, they came out with another video a few days later of the two of them sitting on a couch, stabbing each other as a song plays. It's a great marketing thing, and this movie just jumped up in everyone's excitement list.
Yeah, coming September 2024. And Tucker, I have to take a pause because I have to ask you, did you purposefully pronounce Hugh Jackman's name as Hugh Jackman?
I don't think so.
But that's funny. That I laughed, and you'll be able to see that if you just wind back a little bit when you said, Hugh Jackman confirmed. But I do like that. Thank you very much.
That was not intentional.
Oh, anyway, in terms of speaking of superhero films, and storied actors, seasoned actors returning to superhero roles, we got a confirmation that Keanu Reeves is going to star in a Constantine sequel.
Yeah.
Coming from DC. Just another question mark to throw in the DC pile to ask ourselves, what are they doing?
What are they up to over there?
what are
Will
they
this
up to?
tie into the DCEU? It's a direct sequel to a film that was not obviously set in any canon beforehand.
2004 or something like that. I think I want to say.
Yeah, and frankly, not that confident that the movie's actually happen. I mean, we have seen almost a dozen, if not more, DC films be announced and just never reach completion. And we are still having a few movies that were announced a long time ago continue to get delayed. So the fact that this is just barely in the conceptual standpoint, it could release. But Warner Brothers is in such a shitty place right now, and this is such a weird one that I'm not confident this movie's actually gonna be real, frankly.
I don't know. I think I have some confidence. I mean, you have Keanu Reeves, who is sort of, become a big internet star, big internet draw for films and games even now. And I think getting him attached to this, and maybe even the internet, Twitter loves to do hey, this movie that no one really cared for back in the day is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think
Neither of us have seen it.
No.
Just want to clarify.
I think that'll probably happen with Constantine once this movie finally rolls around. But we also had the confirmation of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes coming in 2024. There has been, sort of a slow trickle of cast members being announced, director and things like that. I love that. I really enjoy that that previous
Matt Reeves trilogy.
The Matt Reeves trilogy. I don't think he directed all of those. But
well, he was involved.
He was involved at least in some of them. And I think that's really sort of an underrated trilogy of the last, decade or 15 years or 20 years or however long it's been. I don't know. Time is a construct. But yeah, I'm excited for this. This apparently takes place 200 some years after the end of War for the Planet of the Apes. So exciting stuff.
Yeah, so I just checked. He directed War and Dawn. So it's mostly his trilogy. And of course, he's the one that's associated with it. But I'm excited for this, not because I like that trilogy, because I saw them in theaters but have not thought about them since, but because I like all the other Planet of the Apes movies. The first 5, I have maybe a sort of soft spot for the Burton one, even though that's definitely one of the worst. But just having this another classic sci-fi franchise continue and get big pushes is exciting. And it sort of just introduces another series into our mix here. We've got Avatar returning, but it's no longer just Star Wars and Marvel kind of at the top. We're getting some other things cracking in, so that's definitely exciting. But speaking of the MCU, Armor Wars, the dead series Armor Wars that we were wondering what the hell was happening with it.
When D23 happened, the creator...
And Comic-Con.
Oh yeah, I think it was Comic-Con actually. When Comic-Con happened and there was no mention of it, the director had to go onto Instagram and just white text on black screen say, Armor Wars is still coming out, I promise.
Yeah.
And it is still coming out, but in a different fashion than we were originally led to believe. It is going to be a film now. Not sure if this means it's a theatrically released film or maybe a Disney Plus original.
I thought it
Potentially.
was confirmed to not be a Disney Plus. So
You know what, Tucker? I didn't see that, and I could be talking out of my ass as we speak. You
yep.
know. But yeah, I mean, I think I read somewhere just some interesting tidbits here that what's his name?
Don Cheadle.
Don Cheadle will be the oldest leading man of a Marvel project once
Yes.
this film finally comes out. No release date for it yet
No.
either, which is troubling maybe. But yeah, I mean, Armor Wars. You know, we're MCU shills. We'll be watching it no matter what format it comes out in.
Yeah, but I also think that it's very exciting that a film of this kind is being released in theaters or has had this transition. It shows that that transition is possible now. This is the first time
Yeah.
that we've gotten a shift between series, and they kind of just it's just good that they decided like, hey, we're thinking about this story, we want to tell it, but we want it to fit its if a format that fits it best. And apparently, a 2-hour film works for this story better. And frankly, as we've seen, the budgets sort of wane and the CGI kind of do weird things in both these shows and the movies. I do get more excited for the films than I do the shows, especially continuing this year. So having this transition, I think, does mean just it will probably be higher quality, and there won't be the padding, there won't be the down episodes, there won't be the rushed ending that a lot of these D plus series have had. So I'm really happy that this is changed to a film.
Yeah. And speaking of things that will be, you know, potentially, speaking of a movie that will be coming to streaming, the Community movie, the long anticipated Community movie, has been confirmed to be coming out on Peacock next year. So you know, I've never seen Community. I will be watching it before this film comes out, just so I can understand it all. I have had an interest in watching that show for a while. So Community fans, communists, the sound off in the comments. You know, the Community fans. You know. Anyway, that's all I really have.
Commies
on that.
is what you should say.
Oh,
yeah.
sorry, commies. Commies, sound off in the comments if you're a big fan of Community.
Yeah.
And some other Marvel news before we just wrap up here. Another unfortunate development coming from the MCU is that the Blade film coming out in November of next year has lost its director, Bassam Tariq. He's still going to stay on as a producer of the film, so that is a sort of nebulous involvement that could mean anything.
Yeah.
But they are on the hunt for a new director for this project that comes out in a little over a year.
Yeah, that's not a great sign.
It's scheduled to come out in a little over a year. I'm
It's
smelling
gonna
a
get
delay
delayed.
coming on, yeah.
Absolutely, and that's not rare for movies of this size. We've got a lot of delays the last few years, especially ones with troubled problems going into production. It was supposed to start shooting in a week.
Yeah.
So this is bad. This is
Yes.
bad news, Jackson. We don't actually know why the director left, but just not good news. Period.
No.
And also bad news for Craven and Madam Web's fans of the SPUMC.
The spunk, please. The
spunk.
spunk.
I just wanted to say it out for once.
Mm.
Both Craven and Madam Web have been delayed. El Muerto still holding strong though.
Oh, you got a director. Alfonso Cuarón's son is going to be
Oh, that's right.
directing El Muerto.
Jonas Cuarón, yeah.
Yeah.
But both these movies coming out later. Whatever, man. I wasn't really looking forward to either of them, but I definitely will see them.
Yes, and finally, just to end off here with another franchise that I have, no experience in, a new Karate Kid film has been announced to be coming out in 2024. Can you believe it, Tucker? No, 2024. Yeah, I mean, I guess this means I'll have to watch all of the Karate Kid films. Maybe dip a toe into Cobra Kai, even.
Maybe.
It's unclear if this is a follow-up to that series. They've called it, a new chapter in the Karate Kid series, or a return to form for the Karate Kid series. So,
who knows
to
what
say
that actually
what
means? Yeah.
Maybe they'll get Jaden Smith and Jackie Chan back. Maybe.
That
Fingers
would be
crossed.
really weird. But that's it for our headlines.
Yeah.
We have got looking back at last month. We've got the future to look forward to because October 2022 is upon us. And while we were really excited for a lot of films that happened last month, we're starting to lean into films that are going to be more quality on the whole because guess what, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen of all ages?
Black Adam comes out next month.
Black Adam. It's the month of Black Adam. But not only Black Adam.
No. That's the high quality I was talking about, Tucker.
I was going to say
yeah,
that we're getting award season films.
Yes.
We've got Decision to Leave. We've got Tar. We've got Amsterdam's probably not going to be up for awards. Banshees of Inisherin, Armageddon Time, Till, Triangle of Sadness, films that have actual reputations and showed at showed at film festivals.
Yeah.
And of course, that still doesn't mean that we're going to not have some blockbuster fare in Black Adam and Lyle Lyle Crocodile and Pray for the Devil and Ticket to Paradise, which are the films that we have predicted, if we take a look at our predictions for next month, to be the ones that are taking the top. I think that there is a very, very clear number 1 and number 2 here, being Black Adam and Halloween Ends. Actually, Tanner and I are both on the same page here for what we believe the top to be. We play this game with our friends, and all of our friends have different top 5s. So we'll be competing against them instead of against each other for this month. But yeah, not a lot of surprises. Looking forward here to the future.
I mean,
don't think.
none of us predicted Smile to be number 1, so I'm not gonna rule out any surprises. But as always, I'm going to take the courageous route here, and I invite all you viewers to do the same in the comments. Drop your box office predictions, your top 5 down in the comments, and if you are brave enough to join me in listing off what you think the domestic opening weekend number will be for those films. I have mine here. I just want to stick it down on it, right in stone, right here, right now. I'm gonna stick with my original predictions for the sake of keeping the game amongst our friends, friendly and jovial. But I'm not confident in this Black Adam number that I have. I have it opening at 62 million, and pre-sales are not looking too strong for Black Adam. So I might have overshot that one a little bit, but hey, we'll see what happens. Can Dwayne Johnson rearrange and change the hierarchy of power in the DCEU forever? But more importantly, can he get people in the seats to see his freaking movie?
Jesus Christ.
But secondly, I have Halloween Ends at 54. I think that this is going to get some people in the seats to see, the ending, the conclusion of the Halloween franchise.
Yeah, worked for Jurassic.
Yeah, and exactly, and that would still quite honestly be in line with the opening domestic weekends of the previous 2 installments.
Mm-hmm.
And for number 3, we have Pray for the Devil, which, as we've seen with September, people will go out to see original horror films.
Yes,
if they are marketed well. This one seems like it's going to be relying on that late in the game skyrocket in marketing. But this does come out on Halloween weekend, so I have faith. I have it staked down at $19 million opening weekend.
Well, trust me, you're not gonna have faith after you see this movie because it's a religious horror movie. So there's a cross on the poster.
No, it's about a noon. What else we got here? Oh, Lyle Lyle Crocodile. You get some kids fare coming out. I have that at 16 million, and then of course Amsterdam at 14 million. It seems that they're giving this a decent marketing push, and the trailers have been strong, showing some real interest in the film, even though critically it hasn't been real great. But quite middling reviews for Amsterdam. But I have that at 14 million, I believe.
Yeah,
yes, $14 million opening weekend.
You'll be seeing reviews of each of these films from us, and reviews of any of these other films. If you look back at the releases that we end up reviewing over this month. But hey, that brings us to a close.
Yeah,
we're done. We talked about all the movies from September, and I'm really glad that you guys joined us here. We're getting into our footing a little bit, doing just 1 month as opposed to trying to cover the entire summer and pulling in all these facts about all these movies. Good Lord.
Yeah.
But boy, Backlot Banter is here to stay, hopefully, and I hope you guys enjoyed looking back at the month of September 2022 with Tanner and I, and we will see you guys in the future. Leave your predictions for the top 5 domestic openings in the comments. Leave your thoughts about any of these films, about the flopping of Bros, the controversy of Don't Worry Darling, the overperformance of Barbarian and Woman King and Smile. It was an interesting month, and I'm very glad we got a chance to talk about it. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you guys next time.